Prepare for a fusion of knowledge and exhilaration where education and excitement collide.
Taking you on an adventure that expands your mind and speaks to your spirit.
I'm Master Nick.
I'm Lady D.
We are the Dom Life.
This podcast contains sexually explicit topics and adult content.
It is intended for listeners 18 and older.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are ours alone, based on our personal thoughts, feelings, and experiences.
We understand that others may have different opinions and experiences, and we respect that. We would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us at www.thedomlife.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I am in Master Nick's chair, and I am with my friend, Zorra.
Hey, look at you. You are the woman in charge today.
I am in charge. I am feeling pretty powerful. So we wanted to do an episode. You came to me and we talked a little bit about doing an episode about together, just sitting down talking and having an episode about previous relationships, which sometimes don't get talked about in current relationships.
It's true.
Sometimes they are, but you're not fully disclosing information. You probably don't even think about it half the time,
Right.
like what the past brought to the future.
Absolutely. And you know, when it comes to kink, it's a little bit different than a vanilla relationship, and you're learning along the way. And so just like in vanilla relationships, you know, the person that you were when you started is not the person that you are. And so all of those experiences are contributing to the person that you are today.
And I thought it was a great topic because you're not necessarily going to do that with your dominant. Like me and Master Nick aren't. We may throw it out there once in a while, but we're not having full conversations about my past.
Right.
And how varied it is or what we've done. And so this episode, that's what we're talking about. We're going to talk about past relationships and impacts of our current relationships, how it colored us or changed us. One of the comments you just made to me when we were kind of talking offline was we were like the baby subs. You're just starting in the beginning, the first time you experience it, the first time you do it. And as you develop into who you currently are now, but that isn't going to be who you are 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why experience is so valuable. And sometimes that's good experience and sometimes that's not so good experiences because we can learn from our failures too. And so I think we're going to get into that today about, you know, where we came from, you know,
right.
the Doms who came before.
Now, you've been on the podcast before for people who haven't actually listened to all the episodes and they're just dropping them for the first time. You were part of the DS lifestyle part with Dante. So you two came on. You are our first guests, first interviews. And we wanted to explore what other DS relationships look like. And so we did a series of interviews with people and you were the first on, and it was an interesting, eye-opening episode. Like there's just so many things, and actually multiple episodes. And then there was a dungeon play.
Yes.
That dungeon play was fun. It was just...
You know, I was skeptical at first at what audio could do. I mean, look at the Dom Life now. Look at you go after a whole year. But, you know, at first, all of those were strictly audio, and I wasn't sure exactly how something as visual as Impact was going to translate into audio, but it did.
And the
it
comments
really did.
we got, I think, so the comments we got on it were... it's like, oh, we really love the sounds and you can tell. And so we ended up doing a couple of other dungeons with the people that we interviewed as well, because we were trying to share those experiences through audio. I've told him we have to go back and do some visuals now. Now that we have the cameras and the setup, that it's time to do some dungeons with some cameras on us. I mean,
Yes.
I'm always up for dungeon dates.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so in addition to that, you were there for I think it was 3 episodes. We ended up taking the interview, split it till 2, and then we did the dungeon, and then we did the voting for the best dungeon. I think Lady D won with Chris on the cross.
You did. You did.
But it was an amazing time, and we've done a lot. I mean, basically, we've always been together since we kind of really got involved in the BDSM at Club Tempted. It's just been all the events and all the things together.
It is. Life tends to go in chapters, right? And life ebbs and flows. And oftentimes we're not looking for it, but life tends to come in chapters. And this definitely was a huge chapter. There were a lot of things that converged to really bring me into this chapter of my life.
We were chasing you down before you had Dante. Like, if you haven't listened, so you were only on the podcast, those episodes, but you've been in the podcast.
Yes.
We have referenced you two for so many different things.
That's because we're fortunate to be along on all these adventures.
One of the best things that happened just recently in our perspective, because we love when people listen to our podcast and then they tell others about it, or they comment to us. And one of the things that we got was a screenshot from somebody that had heard about Ex Libris and the dungeon with the photography from us, from the Dom Life podcast. And I went, and they were in Canada. Was it Canada?
I believe it was, yeah.
So you're talking secondhand. Hey, we heard about you from the Dom Life podcast.
Yes,
What?
yay.
So yeah.
So we have really, it's kind of been interesting that we've had all these adventures together with y'all. And we did, like I said, this was a great chapter. Met you guys very close to the very beginning. And like I said, we have grown in this world together. We're very unique in as much as that we're kind of a BDSM community within a swinger community. That's not necessarily how it always goes. And so we have this very unique world. We talk about Tempted all the time, and how wonderful that, they consider themselves a lifestyle club, not simply a swinger club.
Yes.
And how included that we are, the opportunities that we have to get to share with everyone about our adventures and BDSM. So yeah, we have been together for a long time.
We are bringing a lot of people into the dark side.
We absolutely are. That is our evil plot the whole time, and we're being very, very successful. We are, Sir Dante and I and Ex Libris, we are just so happy to see how well that you all have done in the year that you've been. I mean, we were just talking about how that, mentions here and mentions here, skyrocketing this podcast, and it should be, because once again, everyone here, probably our number one goal is just education.
Yes.
Get out there and find out what makes your life better.
Yes.
And that's what we all want to do together.
So that takes us back to our topic today, which is, previous relationships and BDSM in them. So, because we're talking about what makes us happy.
Right.
And I have had some experiences, and we've touched upon it with Master Nick and I during various podcasts. It'll pop up in one of our episodes. Suddenly I'm talking about it. But to put it into perspective, I am not a happy person without BDSM in my life. I am a submissive, and I need that. It isn't a want. It is a need.
Yeah.
And I ignored it for many years, and I had very good relationships with wonderful, fine, upstanding people that after 2-3 years, I just feel like a friend to them. There was something always missing, even though the relationship was good. So once I figured out what that need was, I think, the world eye-opening stuff that helps you to understand what you need. Because before it was just, I was kinky. I needed this or I needed that, but I didn't understand it. And I mean, my experiences go back, kinky experiences go back to literally my first boyfriend that I am still friends with. My first adult kind of boyfriend. And I'm still friends with him now. And some of the things that he was into were just a little bit kinky. And my first kind of experiences were that. So I get hot and bothered with those kinky things. So if there's not that kind of kink dominant, do this, I want to do this to you, versus let's get into bed and have sex, then it's not fulfilling.
It's not. And it is one of those things. I think that what you're saying resonates with a lot of people. A lot of us knew that we were kinky. A lot of us knew that it was very much headed that way. But we just needed that inciting moment to teach us that that was what it was and that was what we needed. But I think a lot of people know they're kinky on the inside before they're willing to give it a try or the opportunity to do it in real life. That was how I was. I can go back and yes, exactly. I can go back to teenage years and thinking about in my mind what I was attracted to, what made me, which, kind of burned, melted my butter, got my engines revving. But I wasn't willing to admit that out loud, even to my partner at the time.
Right. If they didn't take initiative and do something a little bit kinky, I wasn't going to be the one that say, here's what I need.
Well, especially when you're the submissive, right? You're not about to stay. That's the contrary. You want somebody to tell you or, and
so, how do you direct them? Because that is one of the things beginning to end with Master Nick. When we met, I said, I am not good at initiating sex. It's not because I don't want to. I'm just not good at it. Because I expect you to let me know when you're ready and you want and desire me. Now, we have blurred that line a little bit, but it's still mainly his job to let me know we're having sex.
100%. And that's part of what turns us on, right?
Yes.
Being able to turn that off. And I think that to some degree that is the allure when you say, I want to be used. I want him to gain his pleasure from me. I want to be that beautiful, desired, there's the word you just used, desired object. That's part of what melts my butter. And when I have to do that, I'm not in that mindset anymore. We've changed that dynamic when it's that way. And so sometimes I remember thinking to myself the thoughts and, like I said, the things that were internal for me. It hadn't occurred to me that there was someone whose thoughts and desires was the compliment to me. I hadn't understood that. When I had those thoughts myself, I thought, well, then everyone must feel this way. I didn't realize there was a yin to my yang.
Yeah.
And that was when BDSM busted wide open for me. In fact,
tell me
the first the first dom that I had, I wasn't out there searching for that. I just wanted to get out. I had ended a relationship and I wanted to get out there and I wanted to have fun. I wanted to be in charge. I wanted to put my hand to things and explore. Not even really kinky things, but just more than your average bedroom experiences. And it was a dominant that found me. And, when I was interested in, he was saying, yes, I'd like to have an experience that I share with my wife. And I was like, I am down and everything. And then he just punctuated it with, and I have very specific tastes. And in that hook just caught me so much in that moment. I wasn't even looking for it, but all of a sudden the desires that he began to put out, those words that were just beginning to melt me, those overly dominant, you will, and those kind of things in describing an experience with him, all of a sudden I learned, oh, wait a minute. For everything that turns me on, he's there's a partner that can be the other half of that for you. And that's how you fit together. And that's why it's so hot. Oh my goodness, just turned me on that first experience. And that was what it was, learning that there's more out there.
Right. That is a little bit different than me. Because I had kinksters, right? So I would title them kinksters, not dominants. They take the role as a dominant, but they're more about how kinky or dirty can we make this experience within my defined rules,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? My requirements. And the relationship was, as I was a lot older, I had gone through dating a number of men. And I mean, when I say dating, I mean, I would date somebody until I found somebody that I clicked with. When I clicked with them, that was my person, and we saw where it went. And every single time it would go really great in the beginning because the newness of the relationship and the excitement of just finding somebody that you click with. And then a year in, 2 years in, by the third year, I'm like, I feel like they're my friend and not
Mhm.
my partner anymore. Why did this change? And I had to think through in my head and figure out that what I needed was something a little bit more hardcore, something a little
Mhm.
bit more sexually. It was like, yeah, we have sex. Great, I had an orgasm, but it was never enough.
Mm-mm.
So my first experience was I'm gonna go with the Kinkster because that one was right before I moved away
Mhm.
here to Kentucky. So my upbringing is Chicago.
Mhm.
And he was a Kinkster, but he was like, get up on the table, which was a coffee table, but get up on your table on the hands and knees.
Mhm.
I want, you faced away from me. And then he blindfolded me. And then he just did various things. So that's the control part. Like, you start shaking a little bit, like what's
Mhm.
going to happen? What are you going to
Yes.
do? And to me, those things turn me on. There's a story I've told multiple times, and Master Nick says I'm not allowed to tell it anymore because
Hey,
he
it's
has
just
to.
us girls. We'll tell it again.
So there was one point he was doing some breath play stuff, and he did it right. This is, he was choking me out in the right way
Mhm.
as I was actually orgasming. And during this, I started, convulsing and flipping, and not convulsing because I didn't have oxygen, but because my body was enjoying it so much and my orgasm was
Right.
continuing and expanding and getting larger. And it was amazing. And at the moment that I'm halfway through this massive orgasm, he licks my face from like chin all the way up, like over my eye. And he does it in a way with a flat tongue. And he's like, I was thinking serial killer in my head when I was doing it, like nasty, And when he did it, it was hot. It was take me to the next level hot.
Also, just totally unexpected like you're experiencing so much, and then that was probably the last thing you expected him to do.
Yes, there was never a point that he had ever licked me like that. And so
Mhm.
it just really pushed me over the edge. And that experience, that's why Master Nick keeps saying, if you just wait a little bit, if you just wait a little bit, I keep wanting to do it, but now you've talked about it.
Right?
So sorry, Master Nick.
Sorry.
This is what happens when you put me in charge. Okay, so your first experience was somebody the new one, like
Mhm.
it was new, you were out of a recent relationship, and he said he had some special kind of needs. Explain
He
what that,
Explain what that means. So, in essence, he said, "I'm a dominant,
what did you,
and
what did your brain say?
I'm looking for a submissive." Well, even though I hadn't really explained that, it was like somebody was finally taking all of these things off the shelf that I had just put away and labeled like, this doesn't happen in real life. He literally took my fantasy box out and started offering me these things in real life. It was one of the most erotic things that had ever happened. And I was completely overwhelmed in that first new experience. And he said, I'm a dominant, I'm looking for a submissive. And then he began to just describe, and this is really before the days of even, 50 Shades of Grey and everything.
Well,
There
that's what I was going
wasn't
to say.
anything.
Even the romance were like sweet and nice. Like you
Mhm.
didn't get into the right now in the beginning there's a bunch of trigger warnings in books. They
Yes.
didn't do that.
No,
You
they
couldn't
didn't.
even get it published if it was a book that went too far into.
And so he began, he was eloquent when it came to writing these things. And he began to say, so this would be a game. And he would say, so let's say that I would present you with a deck of cards all fanned out. You would be on your knees, and I would tell you to pick one with your teeth.
Ooh.
And he said, whatever number was on that card is the number of times I'm going to hit you, with whatever implement he had chosen. So these were beginning games that I had never, oh my goodness, just my mind was spinning with how just absolutely erotic this was and amazing this was. And he said, do you understand what I'm telling you when I'm saying about like this dominant and submissive? And I'm like, I am so picking up what you're putting down right now. He
But
said,
was it scary?
yes, terribly. I didn't know what a collar was back then. And, he said, well, here's what we'll do. He said, ask me your questions. So I did what any person would do. You go to Google and you go, okay. And so, of course, when you start putting this into Google, there's 17 million things that come up and you're just barraged with it all. So I began to look down through all of these things and I just began to, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And so we began to have a dialogue as I just was presented with these crazy brand new, do you call her a submissive? Because at this point, collars freaked me out.
Okay.
This concept of having a collar on, having it on all day. And then, of course, if you look at collars, sometimes Google was being really mean to me. And the first collars that were coming were these huge leather collars that had spikes and bows and bells. And I thought to myself, I can't wear that, And so I remember there was an image of a metal band on someone's neck that was locked down on someone's neck. And I thought to myself, where are we? I could never possibly do that. And so all of it was so new. And he began to answer my questions.
Right.
And so that's how I began to learn.
Now, was he older?
Yes, he was a little bit older than I was. Like I said, he was in a relationship. So this was going to be a purely we were going to have a BDSM relationship. This was in no way, and he was very clear about this. He was in no way was this ever going to turn romantic or was it ever going to be anything more than just a simple dominant submissive relationship that, his wife knew about and allowed him to partake in. But yeah, that's one thing that started off that was different. This wasn't going to go anywhere beyond that.
My first, I guess, true experience with BDSM that wasn't a kinkster, wasn't just playing, was with a dominant that military.
Mm-hmm.
He was not in for a relationship. Mm-hmm. He was kind of old school in terms of, and that's not just old school. His preference was, I am a dominant. And the best way I can be a dominant is not to have a relationship, because if I have a relationship with you, it changes my actions towards you.
Absolutely, it changes it.
So we met strictly for DS.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I made some serious mistakes as a first timer who didn't have a community, who didn't, no, I'm of the person, even when I date, I don't bring you to my house. I'm going to meet you out. I'm going to, vet you out. I did that, but what the hell do I know? How can I vet something that I don't even know enough about other than dealing with kinksters who I did know?
Lady D,
mm-hmm.
I didn't know his name.
Well,
you want to talk about, you're just sitting here talking. I am resonating. Number one, my first dom was also ex-military as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, those red flags, and without a community, I think you and I probably would raise this flag high. If, people ask me, okay, so you've been in BDSM for a long time. What piece of advice do you have for a newbie? Oh goodness, that question gets asked over and over and over again. And I have one answer that I learned the hard way, and I will say it forever and ever. You need a community to do this life well.
Yes.
Because there is so much and so many. There is good, there is bad. And especially as a newbie, you don't know what should and shouldn't be done. And that's what I would say. Again,
here's my mistake. here's my mistake. So I'm vetting somebody that I don't even know. Like, it's hard enough when you're dating because you can go out on a number of dates before, but here we are looking for BDSM interactions. We're not dating. He's not the dating type. This is not what we're doing. So we go, I don't think I've ever told this story in full, so thank you for listening. We went to, we met at a coffee shop. We walked around, we talked. I made him show me his ID, so I did know that he was who he said he was. I took a picture of it and I explained to anybody, even when I was dating, if you're going to come to my house or I'm going to go to your house, the first thing I'm going to do is get a picture of your ID and I'm going to send it to a friend because they know where I am. I did the same with this, so at least that was set up. But here's the next interaction we had was he's like, I want you to have sexy lingerie underneath your outfit, and we are going to meet at my apartment. And I did it. I went to his apartment, where he subsequently chained me to his cross and beat the hell out of me in a good way. But he pushed my boundaries more than he should have, and I did go back for it again. I think there was a number of interactions, but he was more a sadist than he was a dominant. And he acknowledged it afterwards. Like, we talked about it, but he also opened my eyes to some things that I had in me that I didn't realize. But that first interaction, he was a dominant long enough that he is able to convince me to do something that was out of my wheelhouse, that scared me a little bit. Like, okay, put me up at the cross. He knew the way to do it and convince me, even though I was like, I don't think we're going to do this the first time. I'd like to get to know you. I'd like to see a little bit of what you do. I got chained or, cuffed.
Yes.
The first night that we interacted BDSM, instead of it being, okay, just hold on and that way you can get down. But when I used a safe word, which I did because he's a sadist and he pushed my boundaries hard. I mean, he didn't push any hard limits, even my soft limits. But, when you're getting hit with a flogger or a whip or whatever. And I mean, I had bruises and marks, which I love. But at the time, it was a lot for my first experience. And that is a no-no. I would never, if anybody told me that the very first BDSM in a private setting, don't do it. Please have a friend with you to watch. Or, I mean, most people who are dominants are totally cool with having other people watch. So why? But I didn't know that. I didn't have a community. I wasn't part of a world where
there was nowhere for you to go and run this by and be like, so how does the first experience go? I didn't have that either. And so, there were a lot of buttons that got pushed. You were still smarter than me. Some of the mistakes that I made that first time, like I said, didn't know his name, invited him to my house the very first time.
And I mean, there are some people that consider themselves doms, or they will use that, but what they are is predators.
They are.
Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But I think, you and I sitting here reflecting on our first times, we have often talked about how that BDSM is, you have to have trust in another person. It's, you obviously need to talk about where you're going and what you want to get out of a scene or an interaction. We know these things now, but it took a long road to get there. And that's why, as a newbie, don't hoe that road yourself. Go to people, have a community. That's why it's important, because maybe you don't know, but somebody else has already been there and
that's
can
one
tell
of the
you and
things-
guide you.
So sometimes there's not a local community that you can find or access. So sometimes you have to use accounts like FET.
Yes.
FET is another tool. I really recommend to have your personal local community, but if you can't find that, then using them and getting chats with people and sending a message out like, hey, I need some help, because people are great at responding. When you say, when you post something about, hey, I've got a question. This seems kind of odd to me. What are your thoughts? People respond. You'll get both sides of it, but at least then you can take what you want out of reading both sides and say, this is how I feel too.
Mm-hmm. There is safety in a council of friends. There really is. And once again, number one thing I would suggest to anybody, find that community. And like you said, there are groups on Facebook. There's, of course, FetLife that you can go to. And I've met lifelong friends in Facebook chats.
Yes.
And, so I know that sometimes we roll our eyes at how sometimes that, social media can make us feel all apart. But to be honest with you, I have found some of that local social group that I have, some of the first people that I met in the lifestyle, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was on FET, I was on Facebook, groups and such, and I found them locally. Like sometimes you got to put yourself out there to find some friends, but these are people that are still ever present in my life today.
So your first relationship, my first pretty much interaction, we're not going to be in a relationship. This is a DS only.
Yes.
Have you had others like that work for you? Or for me, I find, so I had a second one. My second one was the same. Not going to do a DS relationship. I mean, we're going to be just DS relationship. We're not having a personal relationship.
Yeah.
And I will say they push your boundaries more than a part. Maybe not always.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have Sir Dante. I'm sure he's a boundary pusher. Just saying.
Yeah.
But they tend to, because it's a DS relationship, they tend to be a little bit more hardcore on certain things because the relationship part of it, the caring and hearts and love and all that stuff aren't there. Mm-hmm. So they can be pretty strict about your stuff versus, hey, I live with you. I'm not going to piss you off to the point as my submissive that you won't do my laundry, cooking, and you quit talking to me and lock yourself in the closet. Mm-hmm. Not that that's ever happened.
Same here. Second relationship was also a DS only. Just because of the way the situation was, I did not see him in person hardly much at all. We're talking maybe a couple hours during the month. So 99% of that relationship was lived online.
Okay.
And so that was probably the highest protocol relationship that I was in. It was very much about having, rules, boundaries, tasks, expectations set, and having them very, very strictly.
You look so good in my pink.
I do look good in your pink, don't I?
I'm just looking over there going, wow, you look good
I was going to say,
pink.
sometimes you just need to see yourself from a different angle, right?
Okay. So tell me give me some examples of what a mainly online DS relationship looks like. Okay. Mainly text, not just online, but apart where you're not.
Yes. So for example, one of the things that I had to do every day, all day, is if I moved locations, I had to text him and say, I am at home.
Okay.
And then I, of course, let's say it's a Monday. He knew that I was on my way to work.
Okay.
And he knew exactly how many minutes it took me to get to work. And then as soon as I got to work, I had to say, I'm here.
Now, Master Nick and I follow that loosely. I will say, like the other day, I forgot to message him. And I said, hey, I'm heading back. I'm sorry. I told him about it the night before, but I forgot to message him. And we do that because it's just something we've always done. Like, I'm leaving work now. I'm, heading home, or I'm... So I understand that, but he does not know how long it takes for me to get from, he can track me through our tracking, but he doesn't, it's not like he knows. And if I had that kind of regulations, just as a part of our initial contract, it was respond to my text within a certain amount of time. And I cannot, I'm not trying.
Right.
It is one thing that I would fail at all the time, and it would require massive punishments.
It required a lot. See, that was the point of it. The point of it was to keep my attention and my focus on him.
Right.
And there were times that it was, this is a 10-minute trip and it took you 22 minutes. Why have you not texted back? So the answer could have been easy. Oh my gosh, I did. I got here on time and I totally forgot. And his answer was, I'll take care of that later.
So did those so did your when you finally get together interactions involve here were all your
Very prescribed. So one of the things that was just hot was when we did get to spend a little bit of time together, I would receive a set of instructions over text 30 minutes before he would get there. And it would be, you will be wearing this. You will be facing in this direction. You will be waiting for me in natto position. You will have your eyes away from the door. You will not speak to me until I give you permission. Even if it sounds like I asked you a question. You will not speak to me. You will not look at me until you are given permission.
Do they not know who you are?
I was baby Zorra back then. I was so, it was so intoxicating that I was willing.
Right.
This was, I will say, like I said, this was prescription. It was, like I said, it was this minute versus this minute and all day long. And if I forgot it, I got it. I marked it down. And when he would show up, there was a whole list of the things that he would take care of.
Right.
But one of the things that we did back and forth online was mantras, for instance.
Okay.
Who do you belong to? I belong to you, sir.
Does that end up, because it seems to me that the more you repeat something, the more it becomes true. So
it was a mind, it was
almost like
a
a
bit
cult
of a
mind?
mind conditioning, but
not in a bad way.
Not
I
in a
know.
bad
I'm not-
way.
I understand.
But the other thing is, when we're subs, what do we like? We like the comfort. We like the security of knowing things. And so when he asked that question, there was only ever one answer to it.
Right.
And it made it, like I said, it just made that feel like that relationship. Yeah.
So how did that end? How did that relationship end? If you can.
Yeah. What ended up happening is that we were doing this relationship together, and then a previous relationship from my past began to ignite. And it was a significant relationship in my life that I needed to explore it and wanted to explore it. And that ended very abruptly and probably not the best way that it should.
Okay.
Probably a little, that was on my part as well. And so in essence, what happened was this was me learning. I had, like I said, it was really intoxicating. The games, the mind games were so intense. It was great. And what I would consider the most high protocol, the most rigid, these are the expectations and you will follow them precisely.
Right.
And that was in its own way intoxicating, but it kind of crashed into this new relationship. So it was an abrupt end for me on that one.
Right. And so my question would be like, at what point, because you were talking the mantra and there was only one answer.
Mm-hmm.
At the point that he asked that and something else is crashing into it, did you go, that's not my answer anymore, and now I got to end it?
Honest, it was kind of like a car accident that, like, you smashed up against the wall. I wouldn't even say there was time enough for me to even process that
way.
Because this came and it changed over so quickly. But we all know that we've been in places where I'm in this relationship. This is what it is, and it is for a time.
Right.
I think if anything, things always change.
Yes.
So at that moment, that was true. In that moment, it was the right answer. But it changed.
Yes.
But it changed.
And so my second relationship was a strictly DS relationship. I was the sub, obviously. He was the dom. And at some point, I started having feelings, but I can't explain it all. It's hard to do, but I was like, is it really, when you're interacting and you're giving up 100% of your dominant self, like you're giving that up, I'm giving you control of me and you're dictating all these various things and we're communicating. We have sex. Ours was sexual. We have a sexual DS relationship and you're saying it's strictly DS. I kind of pushed against those boundaries. I don't like that. I need my emotions involved. Even if they weren't, if I'm with somebody, my emotions are involved. Okay. That being said, we ended up bringing in a third who considered herself a slave. So there was the dominant, I'm the submissive, but I topped the slave. And it was a little twisty. It happens. So I think that depending on the strength of the person who says I'm a slave, depending on their past, depending on their history, you don't know what it could be. And she kind of came in and basically wanted a little bit more than that. And it ended up taking all of us into a relationship.
Okay.
So it went from not being in a relationship to all of us being in a relationship together. And one of the problems was he was a drinker and I had divorced a drinker, and that made it a little bit hard. I have bad history with alcohol, not me, but alcoholism in my youth. And so when I was a young child. And so I had some real negative feelings about it. And I get that people can't control it. And I get that genetics, but I had an issue, and now I'm in a relationship with somebody, and she had the slave female, she had kids. And so now we're all in a relationship together, and somehow it's like, I knew there was things because I'm smart enough to know that, she was pushing things. Well, it ended up at some point, I let her move in. It's like, I let her move in, and it was like what you want when you have a girl in your life, and it was great and whatever. And somehow he got pushed out. He was gone. And the problem was with the whole thing is that he was gone, and I am not a true dominant. Like, I am a top. I'm an alpha sub. Great. But now I've got a female in my life that I'm supposed to, who considers herself a slave, gives up control. And
she's looking to you for direction now because he's gone.
And I'm failing. I'm not going to lie. I failed, but we had a great relationship, and it's kind of what you want in a relationship, but I failed. I could not keep on top of the things because being a dominant is hard.
Being a dominant is a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of work.
Yes, I don't want it. So that was my second kind of relationship, non-relationship, DS, that was a true dominant submissive with a slave. But I will tell you, some of the hottest things in the world happen. Please follow, like, and share our podcast.
Make sure to visit thedomlife.com, where you can find pictures and other details about the Dom Life podcast. And through the Contact Us button, you can ask questions or provide recommendations for future episodes.
We want to explore your kink too.
Be sure to check out upcoming events to see where our adventures are taking us, and our photo gallery to where we've been.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you had fun listening and learning with us.
Till next time, keep calm and remember your safe word.
Red, red, red.